Climate change overload. Okay.
Be prepared. It's coming.
Do you think it's going to be just like a lot of like fear? Like climate?
Yeah, fear sells.
First of all, before saying anything, climate change is happening, okay? Are we clear on this? But is it caused by humans? No. Oh boy, here we go again. Time to be called a denier. Well, I deny that I am a denier. So climate change is happening. I agree with this. What I don't agree with is that it's only man-made and that is a big and urgent impact on our planet. Okay, I keep hearing this percentage over and over again by these climate alarmists, these Gretas who believe anything without researching. How dare you? Whoever put this idea into this child's brain should rot in jail for child abuse. Here's from where that 97% comes. In 2013, an Australian human impersonator who lies to himself that he's a researcher, John Cook, pretended to have read and examined 12,000 scientific papers related to climate change and find out that 97.1% of these papers agree that greenhouse gases are partially responsible for the global warming. But here's the catch. 66% of these 12,000 papers did not express any opinion on climate change or global warming being caused by greenhouse gases. And from the rest of 34%, 33% agreed with the statement. So what these alarmist snakes did is to divide the 33% who agreed by the 34% who had an opinion on the climate change subject. And Bob's your uncle, mate. Here's a number. 97%.
They claim to have examined about 12,000 scientific papers related to climate change and found that 97% endorsed the consensus view that greenhouse gases were at least partly responsible for global warming. This study generated headlines around the world, and it was the one to which Obama's tweet was referring.
But here again, appearances were deceiving. 2/3 of the papers that Cook and his colleagues examined expressed no view at all on the consensus. Only 41 actually endorsed the view that global warming is mostly man-made. And we still haven't got to it being dangerous. That part of the survey results was simply invented by politicians and activists.
But you see how this number is deceiving, right? Let's put it like this. You read all of the Christmas books written because you are a weirdo and don't have anybody around you. And you conclude that 97% of humans agree that Rudolph the reindeer has a nose. But from the books you've read, 66% don't even mention Rudolph. And from those 34% remaining, 33% said his nose is red and 1% said his nose is blue. Now you take this 33% and make it into 97% of people agree Rudolph has a red nose. Good. Let's say that we ignore the fact that the rest of 66% were not interested in Rudolph's nose at all. Let's just ignore that. And not to mention that this survey is not even saying anything about this climate change being man-made or dangerous. They only agree that humans have some effect on the climate change, which we do, okay? Calm down. I'm not denying that. Stop typing a comment and just watch the video until the end. To continue my stupid example from earlier is like agreeing that Rudolph has a red nose and then also concluding that his nose is always runny and full of snot. All these studies agree at maximum that humans have an influence on the climate, which, like I said, it might be true. But I am not talking here about the carbon dioxide. So in reality, from those 12,000 papers, how many concluded that humans caused most of the global warming? 64. Not 64%, just 64 papers. That's a gargantuan 0.5%. So next time when you see your buddy Al Gore or Hussein Obama speaking about 97%, realize that it's actually not even 1%. Why there's no public study asking this simple question? Is Rudolph's nose full of snot? Is climate change man-made? And how dangerous is it? Why? Because man-made climate change is just like Rudolph. Not real. Fiction. But hey, where this climate change controversy started anyway? Well, it started with some people trying to impose new policies and to create a sense of urgency in the population. These people had a solution to a non-existent problem. And they needed to create the problem, or even better, the illusion that there is a problem, to create a crisis and then to come with a solution to solve that crisis. And for this, these people needed a villain, and who to choose, who to make responsible for the impending doom that will fall on us, who will bring the apocalypse on Earth. Well, of course, none other than the gas of life, carbon dioxide. So you might think, but there are far worse gases out there that are actually poisonous and create a lot of respiratory problems and acid rain and other environment disasters. Shouldn't we concentrate on eliminating those firstly? You would think that's what a rational person will do. But remember, you have no gain from that. There are no state subventions for that, but there are for what you've lobbied for years for. Well, hey, all that plant-based life needs the carbon dioxide to live. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Why would you want to eliminate that? Simple. Because trees do not make a profit until you cut them down. So we decided carbon dioxide is the worst gas because it's a greenhouse gas and it's the worst. It will make the planet like a greenhouse. Do you want to live in a greenhouse? Oh my God, the panic! And this tragedy is man-made. And it's our fault because the planet is dying. Quick, write articles. Make videos about this. How we dare to kill our planet with the poisonous gas. Damn you, carbon dioxide. Al Gore, make quickly a documentary about it with invented data that sound real because you put percentages, and if people see percentages, they will believe it's real and they will not question it. We will give you a Nobel Peace Prize for that. To really convince people you speak the truth. Actually, to be sure, put the word truth in the title, just in case people catch to our scam. So the villain was chosen. Man-made carbon dioxide is the main reason for climate change. Now it's time to create the studies that will align with our agenda. Who should we choose for this? We have two studies available. One from Michael Mann, no, not the movie director, the other fellow. And the other one from Keith Briffa. They both studied tree rings and how they are related to change in temperature. And how do we know this data is correct, and more importantly, what the tree rings are showing is actually correct and related to the carbon dioxide and the temperature? Well, we also have accurate thermometer data for the last 100 something years, so you can clearly see that both of the studies show the temperature increase in the last 50 years. Oh shit, wait a minute. Why is the Briffa line going down after the 1960s?
Briffa's data was a problem for them, was that his temperature reconstruction from tree rings went sharply down in the last half of the 20th century when temperatures were going up. So the question for any rational observer was, if tree ring data went down while temperature went up, what makes you think that these are a good measurement or a good proxy for temperatures? And if they went down when it was warm in the 20th century, how do we know that they didn't do that in the past?
That's not good for us. It will dilute the message we need to send. Climate change is real and urgent and man-made. Wait a second. Man-made? You mean Michael Mann made? Yes, we take the data from Michael Mann and just delete the data from Briffa's diagram from the 1960s until the 1994. This way nobody will realize that these tree rings readings are actually meaningless and have nothing to do with the change in temperature.
The green curve was supposedly the one Briffa submitted to the IPCC. But it goes up to 1994 in the journal article, whereas the IPCC version stopped at 1960.
They deleted the final 33 years of data, the declining portion.
My advice, next time when you talk about man-made climate change, just spell it right, man-made, M-A-N-N-made, because this is his invention. And also remember, you have to mention that this increase in temperature is caused by the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Remember, our message has to be clear and not diluted by contradictory data that will make people second guess what we tell them. Make the people believe that this climate change is unprecedented in the last millennia, that in 1000 years we didn't see temperature this high, and that it's all caused by us because we made more carbon dioxide than the planet can take and we messed up the balance. And you might say, come on, they will not do that to us. Why would they? Why would they lie? Well, this is exactly what the IPCC did. And we know that this happened since 10 years after they did it. The emails detailing their plan and actions were leaked on the internet.
I've just completed Mike's nature trick of adding in the real temps to each series for the last 20 years. That is from 1981 onwards. And from 1961 for Keith's to hide the decline.
Jones was referring to this chart, which, like the IPCC diagram, made it look like all the data sets agreed and showed unprecedented recent warming. It achieved this effect by deleting the BRIFA data after 1960, splicing the thermometer data to each series up to the year 2000, then smoothing over the splice, as Jones said, to hide the decline.
So, this is the world we are living in. Our rulers are looking always for new ways to keep us scared, to divide us, to create strong emotions in us. People are emotional creatures. We like to believe that we are rational, but we are just lying to ourselves. If we would just be rational, we wouldn't be humans. We would be emotionless, or Germans. And the individuals who rule us know this. They want to keep us in these states of worry and fear. They want to create feelings in us. The stronger the better. Once they have a reaction from us, they control us. And this is how they rule us, by fooling us. But I know it's hard to convince people they are being fooled. But think how much influence has on you someone who you hate. It's controlling all of your thoughts. It's basically all you think about. And you base your actions on the feelings you created for this person. And you know what the worst part is? The same happens with a person you love. They have complete control over you. So be careful who you love and who you give your heart to. And for f***'s sake, stop being the moron who loves his country and will die for it. You will die so some rich guys will become richer. You have no reason to be proud of your country, especially if you were born there. That is not your achievement. That is luck. Keep love for personal relationships, and for society, replace love with common interest. You don't have to love your neighbor and the other citizens. This is not some Bible nonsense. What you have to do is to all work for the common interest. That's it. That means to be rational. You all get what you want in the end. Coming back to the global warming nonsense, have you ever wondered why carbon dioxide is a product of burning fossil fuels? How did it get in the fuel in the first place? You might think that coal and oil and natural gas are made from dinosaur juice, but most of it's actually vegetal matter. So this ancient biome absorbed the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere millions of years ago, and now when we burn fossil fuels, we release it back. Nothing gets created, it just transforms. Millions of years ago, the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere were 10 times higher than now, and the planet was not only alive but thriving. Everything was covered with lush forests and vegetation. And even at this level of almost 20 times more CO2 in the atmosphere, the planet was only 10 degrees warmer than today. The planet is not getting at an unprecedented level of warmth. The planet was warmer, way warmer. And I am not talking here about a million years ago, or even 50,000 years ago. No, I am talking about 1,000, about 2,000 years ago. For example, the Alps were not full of glaciers. Roads and tools and settlements were found when the ice melted and proved that in the Roman period they were much warmer than now and actually inhabited. The same story happens all over the world. At some point in the recent history, the globe was much warmer, and we were not that many humans then, and we had no industry to blame us again for the carbon dioxide emissions. The planet goes through cycles of cold and warmth, and to consider that minor increase in carbon dioxide that happened in the last 200 years was the cause of the climate change is not only stupid, but also arrogant. Let me ask you this. If the coastal cities will be flooded in 20 years, why are all these rich people buying houses on the beach? And more importantly, why do insurance companies still insure them? Why there's no climate change clause in the contract? If this alarm is rang and the doom is impending on us, why more new buildings are built now on the shores all over Florida and Europe? This is supposed to be flooded in 20 years. How the investment will be recovered? But the investors know better. Know the climate change is a scam and a hugely doctored and overinflated problem to create a public overreaction and panic, to demand new regulations and to create new money, to have a new state-subsidized teat to suck on. And if you compare the temperatures from 100 years ago to today, you will see no difference. Here's one example.
And one of the lines you're looking at shows the sequence of 365 daily average temperature readings for Ottawa in 1919, and one shows them from 2019. Can you tell which one's from global warming ravaged 2019?
Then there are a million examples just like that. You just have to do a quick online search. So there's no global warming. This is actually the term was changed to climate change because the planet is not getting warmer anymore. These last years were actually one of the coldest in the recent history, with February 2021 being the coldest in the last 30 years. And guess what? Even if it's getting warmer, it's not because of the man-made carbon dioxide. But for a second, let's pretend that it's true and carbon dioxide is causing all of this climate change. What is to be done? Should we use renewable energy sources? Solar, wind? Drive electric cars? Well, I was sure your limited mind will say this, but what if I told you that wind and solar are not as green as you might think? Actually, the production process of the solar panels and wind turbines produces enormous quantities of carbon dioxide, not to include here the shipping to the location, which further increases the carbon dioxide emissions. Furthermore, these resources are limited. The sun is not always shining, and like your mom, the wind is not always blowing. So this leaves you with two options. Have an energy storage for when the energy is produced, such as a battery bank, and then when the sun is not shining and when the wind is not blowing, the energy will be released. But this is a very expensive option, and the production of batteries requires even more carbon dioxide production. Or the second option is to keep a fossil fuel plant as backup, which will be inefficient because will not run at full power and also will produce more carbon dioxide, therefore completely making useless the solar or the wind plant. You will be better off just using the fossil fuel power plant alone in the first place. And people have this infantile idea that once they install solar panels and wind turbines, that's it, free energy forever with nothing more to do. Sorry to burst your ignorance bubble, but solar panels need constant care and cleaning, especially if you had the brilliant idea to build a solar plant in the f***ing desert. They will be covered with sand every day. And even with proper care, a solar panel lasts at maximum 10 years. And then you buy new ones and throw the old ones in the field. And you might think that a solar panel is made out of silicon, out of sand, but you cannot use sand. Sand has too much impurities and even organic matter. What they used to make the panels, it's actually quartz and, drumroll, coal.
The quartz is then melted with coal in a large furnace at temperatures of up to 1,800 degrees.
So you need more coal to do that. So I get another coal out. So when we melt these together, we get silicon metal and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide just goes off and you got rid of the carbon, you're left with silicon metal.
And the wind turbine requires constant maintenance, and even with it, it lasts maximum 20 years. And then you cannot even recycle the materials. Most of them are made out of fiberglass and resin composite, which is unrecyclable. Also, if you want to store the excess energy in batteries, even the most advanced technologies don't last more than 10 years. Also, most of the wind turbines contain the famous sulfur hexafluoride, SF6 gas, which is 23,500 times a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And they all leak a little bit of gas every second in the atmosphere. And not to mention that the solar farms and wind turbines are killing the birds.
It's now under fire because the heat it produces, up to 900 degrees, is charring the feathers of birds flying through, often causing them to crash and die. Workers on site call them streamers because of the smoke plume created when the birds ignite in midair. More than 500 birds have died at one plant, and 1,000 more are expected to die every year at another.
As for the electric cars, there's nothing green about them. They might not produce emissions when they run, but how do you think that electricity that you charge them with was produced? By burning fossil fuel. That's how. And not to mention that to produce an electric car, even if it has fewer parts than a normal car, it takes about the same amount of CO2. This is the reason why Norway banned the use of term green cars for electric vehicles, because they are far away from being green. And you might wonder about biomass. That's a renewable form of energy, isn't it? So, you want to burn trees in order to decrease the carbon dioxide emissions? Trees. The only thing that absorbs carbon dioxide. You want to cut it down and burn it. This is Al Gore's and his partner's David Blood logic with one of their companies. Wait a minute, is this a joke? Blood and Gore? These are their names? I hope it's not foreshadowing for our future. And they have an investment firm funding sustainable projects? Of course they promote the climate change agenda. Not to mention that these biomass power plants also burn natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, and it creates more carbon dioxide.
There's a company that wants to stop climate change by sucking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
One of our plants does the work of 40 million trees.
We have the lowest capital cost and energy cost of any of the CO2 capture from atmosphere solutions.
What if instead of trying to engineer atmosphere scrubbers to absorb the carbon dioxide in the air, we actually plant more trees? Huh? Isn't that a fucking revolutionary idea? At this point, the only viable energy solution is nuclear. Period. By the way, everybody who says nuclear instead of nuclear. It's nuclear from nucleus, not nucleus. Fucking idiots. Anyway, maybe hydro as well, if the environment impact is not too big. Other forms are too polluting and inefficient and damaging for the environment. These alarmists are good at what they do, to alarm people, and what they leave always out of their models and forget to mention is that the number one greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and by far the largest by volume, is water vapor. Actually, 10 times more than CO2. Clouds, yes. Have you ever been in a greenhouse, by the way? It's hot, but most importantly, humid. What do you think is causing this? The carbon dioxide? Think again. What do plants need to grow? Sun and carbon dioxide. So it might surprise you, but in a greenhouse, there's not a lot of the famous greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, because it gets absorbed by the plants. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen, just the opposite of humans. And all the humidity in the air, it's actually water vapor. But hey, maybe soon these alarmists will ban clouds as well. Their models say that a 2 degrees increase in medium temperature across the world is inevitable because of our carbon dioxide production. And even if we stop now, the carbon dioxide production, it will still happen. And the ice will melt, and the seas will rise, and all of the coastal cities will be wiped out in 40 years, and we will all die like the polar bears. Look how bad the polar bears are doing because the ice is melting. In the 1950s, there were around 5,000 polar bears left. But now, with all of this climate change, there are only 30,000 left. What the fuck? Hey, wait a minute. So the polar bear population actually increased 6 times, but we are still being spoon-fed sad images of polar bears barely fitting on tiny icebergs to make us worry for them? These people are taking advantage of our kind nature and trick us to push them into taking the actions to fix these imaginary problems they have created and convinced us they were real. And just to let you know a secret, there are these little things on the planet called volcanoes, which in a normal year, these not taking into consideration any big eruptions, emit up to 400 million tons of CO2. So even if humans stop producing CO2 altogether, which is basically impossible since we all have to be extinct, the planet will still produce carbon dioxide because it fucking needs it. It's what keeps it alive. So what's causing the fluctuations in temperature? What's causing all the ice ages and the hot periods? The sun. Simple. Sun activity has the biggest impact on the temperature on Earth. Period. No doubt. When there's high activity on the surface on the sun, it's hot on Earth. When there's low activity, it's cold on Earth. Simple. The sun influences the weather on Earth more than anything. It influences winds, ocean currents, hurricanes, storms, the water evaporation rate, and implicitly clouds. And the angle at which the Earth is facing the Sun is important as well. Do you know that in the North Hemisphere, in the winter, Earth is actually closer to the Sun than it is in the summer? But because the angle is changed in such a way that the North Hemisphere is farther from the Sun, guess what? It's colder, much colder, freezing cold. And the same applies for the poles. The farther you go north or south, the colder it gets, because of the angle of the Sun. And if lands and islands are disappearing under waters, do not worry. It's normal. It happened before. It happened before humans, before even life itself. In a few thousand years, when the globe will pass again through a cooling cycle, they will reappear. We will not be here to see it, but the planet will be. Maybe other people, the next generations, smarter and kinder than us, will understand how tiny and insignificant we are. Maybe they will not be so arrogant to assume we make a difference or that we save the planet. The planet doesn't need saving. We do. And any green hippie who thinks he's saving the planet should look in the mirror and see the hypocrite. They want them to be saved, not the planet. The planet will be fine, with us or without us. Stop worrying about carbon dioxide because this is not a toxic gas. Plants need it and they will take care of the excess. We need to stop cutting the forests and burn them for energy and plant more trees, and the trees will take care of the atmosphere. Worry about the other toxins that are spilled in the rivers and oceans. Worry about the other emissions that came out of the tailpipe or the power plants furnaces that are actually real toxins. If you are so worried about people causing carbon dioxide emissions, remember that you breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. So if you want to stop the carbon dioxide emissions around the world, start with you and hold your breath for the rest of your life. Thank you for watching this video. Support me on Patreon, subscribe and share. Bye.